Despite my warnings, my husband still invested his life savings in my BIL's private crypto fund. A month later, he logged into his bank account and yelled, "It's gone! Honey, it's all gone." I went straight to BIL's office to confront. "Where is our money?" He just smirked. "You idiot. It's your fault for thinking you could just give me money and wake up rich." But as he gloated, the intercom on his desk buzzed. His expression collapsed from smugness into sheer terror as he heard his secretary's trembling voice say, "Sir, there are 2 detectives from the fraud division here to see you. They have a warrant. My name is Kate, I'm 35, and if you had to describe me in one word, it would probably be cautious. I'm an accountant, which I think says it all. I live by spreadsheets. I find comfort in balanced budgets and well-funded retirement accounts. My world is one of numbers, and numbers don't lie. They are logical, predictable, and safe." My husband, Matt, is 38. He is the opposite of a spreadsheet. He's a wonderful man, truly. He has a heart the size of a house, a laugh that can fill a room, and he loves our 2 kids with a fierce, unwavering devotion. But Matt has always been a dreamer, a man perpetually searching for the shortcut. He sees the world not as a series of calculated risks, but as a lottery, and he's always been convinced that our winning ticket was just around the corner. He's a good man, but his optimism is a dangerous, untethered thing. And then there's Kyle, Matt's younger brother, my brother-in-law, the golden boy. At 32, he still coasted on the charm and charisma that had gotten him everything he ever wanted from his parents. He was the storyteller, the life of the party, the one who always had a grand new venture on the horizon. To his family, he was a budding entrepreneur. To me, he was a parasite in a well-tailored suit. He had a knack for looking successful, the flashy watch, the confident smirk, the talk of disrupting industries, but I knew it was all a house of cards. I had seen the credit card bills he tried to hide from his parents in high school, the loans he never paid back. I knew the real Kyle, the one who lived behind the shimmering facade, and I never, ever trusted him. Our life wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. For 15 years, Matt and I had worked. He was a sales manager at a mid-level tech firm, a job that demanded long hours and endless travel. I crunched numbers for a regional construction company. We were a team. We packed lunches, carpooled, and juggled PTA meetings, and we saved. Every bonus, every tax refund, every little windfall went straight into our savings account. It was our someday fund. Someday we'd put a down payment on a house in a better school district. Someday we'd have a college fund that wouldn't require our kids to take on crippling debt. Someday we'd be able to retire without worrying about becoming a burden. That account held $150,000. It wasn't just money. It was 15 years of our lives, condensed into a number on a screen. It was our future. The beginning of the end started at my in-laws' Sunday dinner. Kyle arrived late, as usual, making a grand entrance. He was practically vibrating with excitement. "Big news, everyone," he announced, pulling out his phone. "The fund is officially live." He started spouting a stream of buzzwords that sounded impressive if you didn't listen too closely. Apex Digital Ventures, he called it. He talked about a, quote, proprietary trading algorithm, decentralized finance, and asymmetric risk-reward profiles. He claimed his private crypto fund was generating, quote, guaranteed returns of 20% a month. "It's a game changer," he said, his eyes gleaming. "This isn't just investing, it's the future of wealth. But I'm keeping the circle small. This is a friends and family only opportunity, a chance to get in on the ground floor before this thing goes stratospheric." I could feel my stomach clenching. I looked across the table at Matt. His eyes were wide, fixed on Kyle with a look of pure, unadulterated awe. He was hooked. The lottery ticket he'd been waiting for had just landed on the dinner table, gift-wrapped by his brother. The car ride home was tense. I could feel the words bubbling up in Matt's chest before he even spoke them. "Kate, this could be it," he said, his voice low and urgent. "This could be the thing that changes everything for us." "Matt? No," I said, my voice flat. "Absolutely not. Just hear me out. 20% a month. Do you know what that would mean? In a year, our $150,000 would be over $1 million. We could buy the house. Pay for the kids' college outright. We could be done, Kate. Done with the grind. Or we could have $0, I countered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Matt, he's promising the impossible. Guaranteed returns don't exist, especially not in crypto. It's the most volatile market in the world. This is a scam." "It's not a scam. It's my brother." "Exactly. It's Kyle. The guy who couldn't hold down a job for more than 6 months. The guy who has no financial background, no license, no credentials whatsoever. He's using a bunch of fancy words he learned on the internet to sell a fantasy." That was the first of many fights. It became the soundtrack to our lives for the next 2 weeks. I printed out articles about crypto fraud and Ponzi schemes and left them on his nightstand. He'd throw them in the trash. I showed him the math, the sheer insanity of a guaranteed 20% monthly return. He'd accuse me of being negative. "You just don't believe in me, Kate," he'd say, his voice laced with hurt. "You don't think I'm capable of making a big move for our family." "This isn't a big move, Matt. It's a gamble with our entire future, our kids' future." Kyle, of course, was a poison in his ear. He'd call Matt constantly, feeding his ego, stoking his resentment. Kate's always been like this. I overheard him telling Matt on the phone one night. She's risk-averse. She's scared of success. She'll have you clipping coupons for the rest of your life while the rest of us are on yachts. Don't let her hold you back. He was manipulating him, painting me as the villain, the anchor weighing down their ship of dreams. And Matt, bless his trusting heart, was buying every word of it. The final, explosive argument happened on a Tuesday night. The kids were asleep. I'd just finished paying the monthly bills and was updating our budget spreadsheet. I want to do it, Kate, Matt said, standing in the doorway of our home office. We've been over this, I said, not looking up from the screen. No, you've been over this. You've lectured me. You've dismissed me, but you haven't listened. This is our money, our life. I have a say. And you want to say, let's set it all on fire? I snapped, finally looking at him. His face hardened. I want to say, let's take a chance on a better life. I'm tired, Kate. I'm so tired of the endless grind of being away from the kids, of worrying about every single dollar. Kyle is offering us a way out. He is a con man, I yelled, standing up, and he is preying on you because you're desperate. And you're just, what? Content with this? With mediocrity? Is this all you want for us? The word mediocrity hung in the air between us, ugly and sharp. It was a low blow, and he knew it. He was weaponizing my practicality against me. This, mediocrity, is a safe, stable life that we have spent 15 years building. I shot back, my voice shaking with rage. And I will not let you throw it away on some fantasy peddled by your snake of a brother. He stared at me, his jaw tight, his eyes cold. It's my money too, Kate, remember that? He turned and walked out. The silence that followed was heavier than any of the shouting. I thought I had won. I thought the finality in my voice had gotten through to him. I was so wrong. The next morning he was quiet. He made the kids lunches, kissed me goodbye like he always did, and went to work. I felt a flicker of hope that we had turned a corner. That night, I logged into our online banking portal to transfer money for the mortgage payment. And I saw it. A single transaction from the day before. An outgoing wire transfer. Amount, $150,000. Recipient, Apex Digital Ventures, LLC. My blood ran cold. I couldn't breathe. The room started to spin. He had done it. He had gone behind my back and given our entire life savings to his brother. For the first month, Matt was walking on air. He was a different person. Lighter, happier, full of a manic, infectious energy. Kyle, ever the master showman, would text him blurry screenshots of a trading platform. A graph with a green line shooting straight up. We're up 18% already, bro, the text would read. Told you this thing was a rocket ship. Matt would show me the phone, his face beaming. See? Look at that, Kate. We're already making money. In a few more months, we can take our original investment out and just play with the profits. I would just nod, a sick feeling coiling in my gut. I couldn't bring myself to engage. Arguing was pointless now. The damage was done. He started talking about things we'd buy. A new SUV for me. A trip to Disney World for the kids. A boat. He was spending money we didn't have, money that I was certain didn't even exist. He was living in the fantasy, and I was living in a cold, quiet nightmare, just waiting for the inevitable wake-up call. But I wasn't just waiting, I was working. My anger had cooled from a raging inferno into a block of ice in my chest. It gave me a strange kind of clarity. I wasn't going to be a victim. If Matt wouldn't listen to reason, I would find proof. My accounting mind took over. I started digging. I remembered Kyle mentioning a kickoff investor dinner a few months back. I scrolled through his social media, a nauseating feed of rented sports cars and champagne bottles. I found a photo from that night. In the background, I recognized a few faces. Matt's cousin David, a former neighbor named Mark, and a couple of guys I vaguely remembered from Kyle's high school clique. I started making calls. It was awkward, humiliating. Hi, David. It's Kate. This is going to sound strange, but are you by any chance an investor in Kyle's crypto fund? And Fry. The first few calls were dead ends. They were either still believers or too embarrassed to admit they'd been duped. But then I got a hold of Mark's wife, Sarah. Oh, thank God, she whispered into the phone after I explained why I was calling. I thought I was going crazy. Mark put in his entire severance package. He won't listen to me. He just keeps showing me these screenshots. A green line going up? I asked. Yes. How did you know? Because Matt gets the exact same ones. That was the crack in the dam. Sarah and I created a private group chat. We added David's wife, who confessed that they had taken out a second mortgage on their house to invest. Slowly, painstakingly, we found others. A retired teacher who had invested her pension. A young couple who had put in the money they'd saved for their wedding. There were 7 of us in total. We were all bound by the same sick feeling of dread, and the same identical, fake screenshots from Kyle. We compared notes. The stories were all the same. The same pitch, the same buzzwords, the same promise of a family and friends exclusive. We compiled everything. Text messages, emails, the fake prospectus Kyle had sent out. We had a file. A thick, damning file. We made a pact. We would wait. We'd give Kyle enough rope, and then we'd act. Together. The day of reckoning came exactly 1 month and 3 days after Matt had transferred the money. It was a Saturday. The kids were watching cartoons, and Matt was on his laptop at the kitchen table. a mug of coffee steaming beside him. I was pretending to read a book, but I was really just watching him. That's weird, he muttered. My head snapped up. What's weird? The investor portal. The site is down. It's giving me a 404 error. My heart started to pound, a slow, heavy drumbeat against my ribs. This is it. He refreshed the page. Nothing. He tried a different browser. Nothing. A line of sweat beaded on his forehead. I'll call Kyle, he said, his voice a little too high. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers suddenly clumsy. He put it to his ear. I watched his face as it rang, and went to voicemail. Panic began to set in, a wild, animalistic fear in his eyes. He's probably just busy, Matt said, more to himself than to me. Maybe the site is just down for maintenance. He was grasping at straws, and we both knew it. He closed the laptop and then, with a trembling hand, opened it again. He navigated to our bank's website. His movements were slow, deliberate, as if he were afraid of what he would find. He typed in his password, his knuckles white. The page loaded. Our checking account. Our savings account. The one that used to hold our future. The balance read, $1, 254.32. He just stared. He stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity. The color drained from his face, leaving it a pasty, sickly white. The life, the optimism, the manic joy of the past month evaporated in an instant, replaced by a hollow, vacant shock. Then, his breath hitched. A low, guttural sound escaped his throat, and he screamed. It wasn't just a yell, it was a raw, primal scream of pure agony and loss. It's gone, honey! It's all gone! He shoved himself away from the table, the chair clattering to the floor. He buried his face in his hands, and his body was racked with huge, shuddering sobs. I'm so sorry, he choked out between gasps. Oh, God, Kate, what have I done? I've ruined us! I've ruined everything! He collapsed onto the floor, a broken man, weeping amidst the ruins of our life, and I just stood there, watching him. The ice in my chest was so cold, it burned. There were no tears. There was no, I told you so. There was only a terrifying, laser-like focus. I walked over to the counter, picked up my car keys, and slipped on my shoes. Matt looked up at me, his face streaked with tears and snot. Where are you going? I looked down at the man I had loved for nearly 2 decades, the father of my children, the man who had just single-handedly destroyed our future. I'm going to Kyle's office, I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. I'm going to get our money back. The drive downtown was a blur. The rage I had suppressed for a month was now a roaring furnace inside me, fueling a cold, calculated resolve. I wasn't thinking about our marriage or the kids or the 15 years of work. All I could see was my brother-in-law's smug, condescending face. Kyle's office was exactly what I expected, a monument to fake success. It was in one of those new glass and steel skyscrapers, with a lobby that smelled of money and ambition. The sign on the door read, Apex Digital Ventures, in a sleek, soulless font. It was all part of the costume, designed to make people like Matt feel like they were part of something big and important. His secretary, a young woman who looked barely out of college, tried to stop me. Ma'am, you can't just go in there, you need an appointment. I walked past her like she wasn't even there. I didn't knock. I threw the door open with such force that it slammed against the wall, the sound echoing in the ostentatiously large office. And there he was, my brother-in-law. Lounging in a ridiculously oversized black leather chair, his feet propped up on a massive mahogany desk that I knew for a fact was rented. He was wearing a Rolex that probably cost more than my car and sipping an espresso. He looked up, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face before it settled into that familiar, arrogant smirk. Well, he said, not bothering to move. To what do I owe the pleasure, Kate? Come to see how the other half lives? I walked to the front of his desk, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. My whole body was trembling, but my voice was steady. Where is our money, Kyle? He let out a short, derisive laugh. Our money? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb with me, I snarled. $150,000. Matt transferred it to you a month ago. The investor website is down, and you're not answering his calls. Where is our money? He slowly swung his feet off the desk and leaned forward, placing his espresso cup down with a delicate clink. He steepled his fingers and looked at me, his eyes cold and devoid of any family affection. The smirk widened into a full-blown, contemptuous grin. You idiot, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. It's your fault for thinking you could just give me money and wake up rich. The words hit me like a physical blow, but I didn't flinch. I just stared at him, letting my hatred burn. He leaned back in his chair, reveling in his moment of triumph. You know, I almost feel sorry for you. You, with your little spreadsheets and your sensible shoes, always playing it safe. You never understood how the world really works. It's for people who take what they want. People like me. He gestured around the office. And your husband, my brother, God, what a mark. He was so desperate, so easy. All I had to do was dangle a shiny object in front of him, and he practically begged me to take his money. This is our chance, Kyle. Don't let Kate talk us out of it. He mimicked Matt's voice in a pathetic, whiny tone. You should have kept a tighter leash on your husband, he continued, his voice turning cruel. Matt is a loser, and losers are meant to be fleeced. That's just the natural order of things. He was gloating, savoring every word, twisting the knife. He thought he had won. He thought he was untouchable. He thought I was just another hysterical woman he could dismiss. And in that moment, as the smug satisfaction rolled off him in waves, a sharp electronic buzz cut through the air. It was the intercom on his desk. Kyle's expression faltered for a fraction of a second, annoyed by the interruption to his victory speech. He jabbed a button on the console. "What is it, Tiffany?" "I'm in a meeting." A tinny, trembling voice crackled through the speaker. It was his secretary, and she sounded terrified. "Sir, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there are 2 detectives from the Economic Fraud Division here to see you. They have a warrant." The transformation was instantaneous and glorious. The color drained from his face so fast it was like someone had pulled a plug. His smug, arrogant mask crumbled, shattering into a million pieces. The self-satisfied smirk was replaced by a slack-jawed gape of disbelief. His eyes, which moments before had been dancing with malicious glee, were now wide with a dawning primal terror. He looked from the intercom to my face, his mind scrambling to connect the dots. He looked like a cornered animal. What did you say?" he stammered into the intercom, his voice a hoarse whisper. But he wasn't talking to Tiffany. He was looking at me. I let the silence hang in the air for a long, delicious moment. I watched the sweat bead on his upper lip. I watched the last vestiges of his bravado collapse into sheer, pathetic panic. I took a step closer to the desk and leaned forward, placing my palms flat on the polished, rented wood. I looked him directly in his terrified eyes. "I found the others, Kyle," I said, my voice low and calm. "Your cousin David, your old neighbor Mark, the retired teacher you scammed out of her pension. All 7 of us. We filed a collective fraud report with the state attorney's office last week. We gave them everything. The texts, the emails, the identical, photoshopped, profit, reports." I smiled, a cold, sharp thing that didn't reach my eyes. "Enjoy prison, brother-in-law." I turned my back on him, on the wreckage of his fake life. As I walked towards the door, 2 men in plain clothes walked in. They were large, impassive, and all business. They didn't even glance at me. Their eyes were fixed on the pale, trembling man behind the desk. I walked past them without breaking stride. As I passed the threshold of the office, I gave them a slight, respectful nod. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could already hear the sound of my brother-in-law's world crashing down around him. The aftermath was a messy, complicated explosion that ripped through our entire family. Kyle was arrested right there in his rented office. The story hit the local news. His assets were frozen, but there wasn't much to freeze. The investigation revealed what I had suspected all along. It was a classic Ponzi scheme. There was no proprietary algorithm, no crypto fund. He had taken our money, and everyone else's, and used it to fund his lavish lifestyle. The rented Lamborghini, the designer watches, the VIP tables at clubs. It was all paid for with the life savings of people who had trusted him. There was almost nothing left. The family reaction was a chaotic mix of disbelief, anger, and misplaced loyalty. My in-laws were devastated, caught in an impossible position between their 2 sons. My mother-in-law called me, weeping, asking if I was sure, if there wasn't some misunderstanding. "He's our son, Kate," she'd cried. Some of Matt's family took Kyle's side, claiming he was just a young man who made a mistake, that he'd gotten in over his head. They looked at me like I was a traitor for turning him in, but others, like his cousin David, called to thank me, their voices thick with relief and gratitude. The fault lines in Matt's family cracked wide open, and I wasn't sure they would ever heal. And then there was Matt. He was a ghost. For weeks he shuffled around our house, his eyes hollow, his shoulders slumped. He slept on the couch. The silence between us was a physical weight, suffocating and heavy. He was drowning in a sea of guilt and shame, and I was too angry, too hurt to throw him a lifeline. I didn't know if our marriage could survive this. How do you come back from a betrayal that profound? He hadn't just lost our money, he had shattered my trust, the very foundation of our partnership. About a month after Kyle's arrest, Matt came to me with a piece of paper in his hand. His eyes were red-rimmed. "I've started seeing a therapist," he said quietly, "and I've got a second job, working weekends at a hardware store. It's not much, but it's a start." He slid the paper across the table to me. It was a postnuptial agreement, drafted by a lawyer. It gave me sole and complete control over all our current and future finances. It was a legal document of surrender. "I know I can't earn back your trust with words, Kate," he said, his voice cracking, "so I have to show you. I will spend the rest of my life making this right. If you'll let me." It wasn't a magic fix, it wasn't a Hollywood ending, but it was something. It was accountability. It was the first step on a long, arduous road back. It's been 6 months now. Kyle took a plea bargain and is facing several years in prison. We, along with the other victims, might get back 10 cents on the dollar after his few remaining assets are liquidated. It's a pittance, but it's something. Matt's family is still fractured. Some relatives don't speak to us. My in-laws are trying, but there's a new, painful distance between us all. Matt and I are still together. We are in marriage counseling. He works his 2 jobs, coming home exhausted but determined. I manage the money, slowly, painstakingly rebuilding our savings account, dollar by dollar. The trust is not fully restored. It's a fragile, delicate thing that I'm not sure will ever be as strong as it once was. Some days, I look at him, and all I can feel is the fury and the betrayal. But other days, I see the man I married, the kind, loving father who made a catastrophic mistake out of a desperate desire to give his family a better life. We are not the same people we were before. The naive optimism is gone, replaced by a hard-won realism. We lost our savings, our sense of security, and a part of our family. But in the wreckage, we found something else. I found a strength I never knew I possessed. And Matt, in losing everything, was forced to finally confront his own weaknesses. The road ahead is long, and the future we're building will look very different from the one we had planned. But we are building it together. And this time, it will be built on a foundation of hard truth, not hopeful fantasy. This time, it will be real.